Brooks Bell is a longtime member of the Techonomy community. She has a long history as a CEO of a company that she started in Winston-Salem about data-centric digital marketing. She's a veteran of internet ecosystem, but since getting a diagnosis of very severe colon cancer in 2019, her life has changed. Luckily, she successfully beat it back, and now she is a apostle of understanding and helping us take action on this threat to our health. So I'm going to turn it over to Brooks. She's going to make a little presentation, and if there's time, I'll ask her a question or two, and if you have one, you can put it in the chat. So take it away, Brooks Bell. Thanks,
you. David. Well, I'm so glad to be here today, and I appreciate everyone listening to my colon cancer story. I'm going to share how I became a colonoscopy enthusiast over the last couple of years. So my story began really when I was 23, and I started my my first company. Is called Brooks Bell, and it was a digital analytics firm. I grew it to 10 million in revenue, 50 employees. We generated $1 billion in value for some of our largest corporate clients, and ran it for 17 years. And then just under 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer at age 38. And the way that happened actually started at a Techonomy conference in 2018. I went to the bathroom one morning, looked down, and I saw blood in my stool. Over the next 2 months, I talked with 2 doctors about it, and they assured me that it was just hemorrhoids. But it had been 2 months, and so I decided to call a third doctor to get another opinion. This time I called a gastroenterologist, and when I went in to meet them, she said that 2 months was too long and that I was not too young for colon cancer. So we did a colonoscopy 4 days later, and I woke up and they found a tumor, and that is the day that my life changed forever. A few days later, I was found out it was stage 3, and I went on to have surgery. I had 10 inches of my colon removed. I did 3 months of pretty intense chemotherapy, and then finished my treatment, went on to have 4 clean scans, and I was declared cancer-free. So I was very lucky. I caught it reasonably early, and my odds were still pretty good. In the process of coping with colon cancer at a young age, I spent hours and hours reading academic papers and trying to build as much expertise as I could in this disease and how this happened to me. And I found some incredible data and trends that I'm here to share with you because I think it's something that we should all really know about. First of all, colon cancer is very common. 1 in 23 people actually get colon cancer in their lifetime. It is actually the 3rd most common cancer. Had you quizzed me 2 years ago on the top 10 cancers, colon cancer would not have even made the list. So I was shocked to find out that it is one of the big ones. The second thing I learned is that it is actually deadly. It's the 2nd most deadly after lung cancer, and more people die of colon cancer than breast cancer or prostate cancer each year. Even though colon cancer only raises less than 1% of breast cancer, it's far more deadly. And it is skyrocketing in young people. A lot of people think about colon cancer as something, as the old man's disease. We see it affecting, older people, and it does primarily affect older people, but it's actually gone up by 50% in people under the age of 50 in the last 3 decades. And this trend is just starting to accelerate. It is predicted to go up another 90% in people under the age of 35 in the next decade. So soon, about 25% of the new diagnoses will be people under the age of 50, and it's becoming a young person's disease. So it shows that in my case, I'm not really a tragedy, I'm actually more of a trend. So when I share this shocking trend in young people, first question people ask me is, what is going on? And that is a question that a lot of doctors are looking at as well. And there is no answer. It is oncologists in many of the top cancer centers are very concerned. They're trying to figure out what's going on, and they're looking beyond obesity and alcohol and kind of the usual suspects and finding new ones. And the one that they've really started to look at in the last 5 to 10 years is our microbiome. And that is because 95% of our microbiome is in our colon. And in the last 3 or 4 decades, there have been tremendous changes in our environmental toxins and in our overall behavior, all of which negatively impact our microbiome. And that is our use of antibiotics, which of course directly affects our microbiome, but also how our diets have changed with the industrialization of our food system and the increase of processed foods. And then the plastics, our endocrine disruptors, all the plastics and glyphosate and other phthalates that we are exposed to all have been proven to negatively affect our microbiome. And it follows that our microbiome, a damaged microbiome, would also lead ultimately to a damaged colon. So that's why they're starting to look more closely at our gut health as an area that we should be doing more research. So the good news, however, is that colon cancer is uniquely preventable. When I was 35 years old, just a few years ago, I had a moment when I was really feeling very proactive. And so I wanted to go and I saw a naturopath. I started, I got a stool test. I got all these things to try to get in front of my health. And I knew I was getting older, and I was thinking about cancer screenings. And I was thinking, I was really afraid of getting cancer one day in the future. And so I thought I should get whatever screening I could early. But when I went to look at screenings, I thought about a mammogram, I thought about a CAT scan, but I started to realize that the screenings I thought of pretty much just detect early stage cancer. And that's not what I was interested in. I was interested in preventing it in the future. And I think that was a reasonable conclusion, because most cancer is not preventable. Breast cancer is not preventable. Pancreatic cancer, like leukemia, bone cancer, prostate cancer, none of them are really preventable. But there is a short list of ones that are, and colon cancer is on that list. And the thing is it's a colonoscopy. I wish that I had thought to do a colonoscopy when I was 35, because obviously it would have made a pretty big difference in my health. So the reason that a colonoscopy is the answer, and a lot of people don't, colonoscopy is not news. We all know about colonoscopies. We've heard about them. We've heard they're invasive and something you do when you're 50. But what we don't talk about is that a colonoscopy doesn't just diagnose cancer, it actually protects you. And that is why I'm an enthusiast. So when we talk about most screenings, and within colon cancer, a Cologuard is an example of this, we think about catching cancer early. And that is super important. The earlier we catch the cancer, the more treatable it is. And I caught mine early, and that's why I'm here today. But if we're thinking about catching it early, it limits us to a 1 to 2 year window when a tumor is small enough before it's spread. And that means that we need to start thinking about cancer all the time. And I think no one really wants to be thinking about cancer all the time. And we need to be checking all the time. What's a better path when possible is finding precancer and getting it removed. And that is what is unique about colon cancer, is that all colon cancer actually starts as a precancerous polyp. And I show a little picture of a popcorn kernel here. It's similar to that. It's about the same size. They grow for 5 to 10 years in your gut with no symptoms. And then one day, something in your environment changes and it pops like popcorn and become cancerous. But it sits there kind of doing nothing for 5 to 10 years. Not all polyps become cancerous, but by finding polyps and removing them, you effectively virtually eliminate your risk for colon cancer until you grow another polyp. What's so amazing about colonoscopies, it's the only screening that finds your polyps and removes them. When you wake up, if they found a polyp, they will have snipped it out and you will be protected. The other thing I learned is that polyps are not uncommon. Actually, 1 in 5 people have a precancerous polyp by their 50th birthday, which means that whenever you go out with your friends post-COVID for some drinks, if you have 4 more friends and you're in maybe your 40s, the odds are one of you is growing a polyp at that table, at least one. And if you're actually under the age of 40 and you happen to have a polyp, there is an almost 40% chance that it's actually really big. In my case, I actually had 3 polyps by the time I was 38. And of course, well, one was already cancer and the other 2 were pretty big. So for those of you who haven't had a colonoscopy yet, for the young people on this call, it's also really unexpectedly pleasant. First of all, it's 100% painless. You have no sense that anything has happened, that you've been poked. There's no cramps, there's no soreness, there's nothing that says that you've just had a colonoscopy once you wake up. It takes about 30 minutes to perform. And a lot of people have told me that their colonoscopy was the best nap they've ever had, which is something I think young parents really appreciate. And doing the cleanse and the fast ahead of time is it makes you feel light and it's and healthy, and then it's also safe. That's another myth about colonoscopies, that they're not safe. In reality, only 4 out of 1,000 colonoscopies have a severe adverse effect, and that risk is higher the older you are. I guess your colon is a little bit more, paper-like. So it's safe the younger you are. And lastly, I think this is what is really important, is that no matter what, when you wake up, you can only have good news. If they don't find a polyp, that means that you don't need to think about a colonoscopy for another decade. And if they do find a polyp, they will have removed it and you will be a bullet dodger. And now you know that you're someone who produces polyps and are more equipped to advocate for your health going forward. And then the third is that if they actually do find a tumor, like they did in my case, they found it sooner than they would have otherwise, and your odds for surviving are certainly higher than they would be had you waited any longer. So good news is guaranteed with a colonoscopy. And then of course you get to eat the best, everything you eat right afterwards will taste better than it's ever tasted. So I don't know if I've convinced anyone to get a colonoscopy. Unfortunately, it will never be available to everyone. We actually don't have enough gastroenterologists in our healthcare system. And and they cost a lot of money, and just the accessibility will never be there. So it's so what is really important is, as we move forward, what the healthcare system needs to do a better job of is risk stratification and figuring out who should get the colonoscopies and when. And so there's some trends in this industry that will help us kind of be smarter about when we get our colonoscopies. And one is genetic tests. I know Nicole Lambert from Myriad spoke here on Tuesday. And so there's some companies like Myriad and Invitae that are producing better and better genetic tests that are also becoming more and more available to younger people. And so as those become more available, then younger people will start to know what new mutations are elevating their risk and if they should go in and start looking for polyps earlier in their life. There are also many technologies out there that are increasing our ability to directly predict who has polyps and to find them without doing a colonoscopy. One technology I think is pretty cool is PillCam by Medtronic. So you can actually order about 3 years from now, you should be able to order this from Amazon and get it at home, do a easy prep, swallow it, and it'll take little photos of your colon as it spins through your body. And then we'll send up to an AI machine to detect, which of your photos are showing a polyp. There's also companies like CellMax Life that are blood tests that can predict, look for signs of polyps in your gut. And in the distant future, once we understand the microbiome, eventually there will be stool tests that look at the makeup of your microbiome, and we'll know which bacterial strains also are associated with inflammation and polyps. And then there is this very exciting thing that's happening with Freenome and Grail. These are two massive companies that have collectively raised over $2.5 billion. And they're skipping the whole polyp detection completely. They want to be able to do a yearly blood test as part of your primary care appointment that will just simply detect whether or not you have cancer that day. And so if that's accessible, can start at early enough ages, then I think we'll really expand our screening so that we can just spend time going straight to cancer versus polyps. So those are three really exciting things. And then the last thing is on policy, there has, while we're waiting for this technology to become available, colonoscopies are becoming more accessible to younger people. A key governmental group recently updated their preliminary recommendations to reduce screening colonoscopies to start at age 45. And what that means is that within a couple of years, once these are finalized and rolled out to insurance, you should be able to have your colonoscopy covered 5 years earlier, which means 20 million more people will be able to get access to a free colonoscopy. And for those of you who are in your early 40s, pay attention to this policy so that by the time you hit your 45th birthday, you can be first in line. So thank you everyone on letting me try to pitch you on getting colonoscopy. And for anyone who wants to join me in this movement, for becoming a colonoscopy enthusiast, I've got free t-shirts for you. You just need to promise to wear them in public and send me your t-shirt size and your address, and I'll get one into your hands.
Thank you, Brooks. So 2 quick questions, and then we got to run because we're a little bit behind. But yes. One person asked if stools, you showed the Cologuard. This person asks if a stool sample is as reliable of an indicator as a colonoscopy, but the answer to that is no. Am I right?
It is. It catches 92% of early stage cancers. So whereas a colonoscopy catches 100% of early stage cancers. And the problem is Cologuard does not catch polyps. So it does, if it's a very big, almost ready to turn into cancer, it might catch it, but it needs to be a huge polyp for it to catch it. And it doesn't remove polyps. So it does diagnose early cancer, but doesn't protect you against it.
One other question. Somebody asked about, you said something about when you wake up, and this person said that he was under the impression it was done under sedation rather than full anesthesia. Could you just clarify that?
The sedation is called Propofol. And so it's not full, and you're asleep. It's not full anesthesia, but it's the same. I don't know if people remember what Michael Jackson used to do. It's the same drug that he would take, and so it's kind of in and out of your system really quickly. So you get out of Propofol sedation within 15 or 20 minutes once you wake up.
Hey, I'm a huge enthusiast for it, and I might not wear the T-shirt, but. I will say that you kind of glossed over the stuff you drink the night before, but hey, it's a small price to pay.
Yeah, I did if you want to go to my YouTube channel, I did an A/B test, which is of course what my first company was all about, on all the cleanse preps. So I did a taste test with a wine glass on all of them before my last colonoscopy. So there's some information.
None of them taste terribly great, I would say. Somebody asked about virtual colonoscopy. Oh, Rick Smolin. Hi, Rick. Is there such a thing as a virtual colonoscopy?
Yeah, there is a virtual colonoscopy. It's basically using a same CAT scan technology. There is some radiation, and you still have to prep for it, so that you have to have a fully clean colonoscopy. The main difference is that you're not poked, but you still have to do the prep, still go to the hospital, do kind of everything else. It's just you're not literally poked. So there's a limited number of use cases where that would make more sense than doing a colonoscopy. And it's also never covered. It's very expensive.
Thank you, Brooks. And I should say, I think you have been to as many Techonomy physical conferences as anyone. So we love you for that. And it's amazing how much you've learned about this topic. So thank you for sharing a small portion of it with us today.
My pleasure.
So thanks again.